the destruction that happens inside of a cocoon, the pain that caterpillar has to go through to become a butterfly. He's in his cocoon stage right now. Something has to be broken before it can be better than what it was. What's going on, everyone? Mike Griff back with a brand new reaction. We are diving back into the REN chapters. Chapter 5 is today. So I don't have my REN shirt. I can't find it. Looked everywhere, and holidays happen. Lots of things have been going on, so I don't know. By the way, happy holidays. Hope everyone had a good break. I want to point out, I put all these chapters. It's great. I can't wait to get, I'm enjoying going through them, and I can't wait to get through them all and then revisit REN's songs, especially, the ones I've heard before that I haven't reacted to because either I heard it before the channel started and I didn't want to give, I didn't feel like listening to it was going to give you a good reaction because I already heard it, but listening to the songs now, Hey Ren, say, Troubles, all those songs, I feel like I can give you a fresh reaction now because it's it'll be like listening to it for the first time. Another thing I want to say is that at the end of all these chapters, there is a song. I am reacting to those songs. For some of those, just having some copyright issues with them. Not strikes or anything, but what I'm doing is I'm reacting to the songs, and I'm just uniformly going to take them out of the chapter reactions and then later release the song reactions separately. I don't know if I'm going to do a compilation video of all the songs or maybe one song per video. I don't know, because it's really just me listening to it after hearing the chapter, and I don't think I pause it that much. But yeah, that's just how this is gonna go. Like, comment, share, subscribe. Let's keep this channel rolling, and let's get back in to the REN chapters. Chapter 5.
I tried to cling on to music in whatever ways I could during the time I was sick. During my time in Brighton, whenever my energy would allow it, I'd get myself out into the streets and I'd go busking, about once every 3 weeks or so. It was my second year in Brighton, and I remember one evening heading home with my guitar and my busking amp after a couple of hours of playing on the street. I remember hearing this amazing ethereal voice while heading through the lanes, and I saw that it was coming from this 16-year-old kid. I've always had a deep admiration and feeling of camaraderie for buskers. There's something about the willingness to be able to bare your soul to a street full of strangers that really moves me. I noticed that the kid didn't have an amp. He was singing totally a cappella, but you'd only hear him if you were within a few meters of him. I knew from years on the street and singing a cappella than myself that an amp can change everything. I had this compulsion to offer him mine. I approached him and I told him that if he plugged in and sang while I played guitar, the whole street would stop in its tracks. And I was right. His voice soared across the street and people started stopping. Not long after, we had the whole street's attention. Something quite magic was happening.
That's beautiful.
This was the first day that I met Sam Tompkins, someone who would be integral to my whole life changing later on. He had a friend with him, this guy called Connor Honeyset, who would later go on to be my manager. For now, they'd just be a couple of teenagers that I'd have to help out on my way home. It's funny how life works like that. I kept up to date with what Sam was doing on social media. There was a part of me that felt like his successes allowed me to live vicariously through someone else who lived an alternate reality where I never got sick. He was getting videos on SBTV, writing and featuring with some amazing artists, and there were quite a lot of similarities in our writing styles, and all at such a young age. I wasn't really able to do any of that stuff at the time. I was mostly bedbound with the exception of the odd day that I'd be able to go busking. It could have been very easy for that feeling to turn into jealousy, but it never did. I felt truly proud of him. Years later, we go on to write a song together called Blind Eyed, which would transform the trajectory of my whole career. During this time, I was still desperately jumping from one treatment to another treatment. And now that my diet had become more limited, I was trying new diets with no luck. As the options in the alternative health world started to dwindle, I started searching for answers in the divine. In the former years, I had moments where I found myself sitting in churches, talking in tears to whoever might be listening, or experimenting with energetic healing modalities like Reiki. With time, my searching started taking even more unusual turns. I started looking to things like exorcists. Once you exhaust all rational explanations and treatments, the irrational suddenly starts looking more palatable. I had a skeptic's mind, but I had nothing to lose because there were no other good options. My friend Momoko's mother was from Japan. She aligned herself with a sect of Buddhism called the Nichiren Daishonin. They would chant a repeated phrase over and over again while holding prayer beads. The chant would go, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, Nam-myoho Renge-kyo, over and over again. Its intention was to align you with your innate Buddhahood, to cleanse you of any bad karma and put you in alignment with your true destiny on earth, to find peace, to find tranquility. Momoko's mum gifted me with my own set of beads, and I began to chant every morning. Eventually I joined a group in Brighton after a serendipitous meeting with an incredibly eccentric, bright colourful suit-wearing piano tuner. He spotted my beads and he grinned at me and he pulled out his own. We'd sit in a small group and we'd chant for hours sometimes. There was something comforting about trusting the course of my life and illness to an incomprehensible power outside of myself. I spoke openly in these meetings that I loved feeling part of something, but that I really struggled saying with certainty that I believed in it. This was the issue I faced with every religion I temporarily aligned myself with, looking for answers. Something in me couldn't bring myself to take ancient texts as gospel, all too aware of how man twists so-called spiritual doctrines to suit his own power-hungry pursuits. I wanted divine proof. I sometimes screamed at the sky or the waves and begged for it. I was answered with sickness. If there was a creator, I was angry with it. The irony was that I envied people of faith. I felt like people who truly trusted themselves to a higher power seemed to possess a level of calm and acceptance that I didn't. One of my stranger encounters was going to see a shaman. The shaman, of course, was a middle-aged white woman in a quite nice-looking cottage in Brighton. She told me to lie down and she proceeded to lean over my body and made noises like coughing up phlegm while speaking an unknown ancient language that seemed to include whistling noises. After about 20 minutes of making distressed groaning noises over my back, she paused in contemplation for a while and proceeded to tell me that I'd been killed by a sword in my past life. She made sucking noises near the supposed stab site on my chest, and then she spat into a bucket. She then placed a little stone into my hand and she told me that I had to bury it on a high hill in Brighton on the next full moon. The most depressing part of this story is during the next full moon, I did indeed find a big hill, dug a small hole, and I buried the stone in it. Surprising to say, fuck all happened. It was this journey into the spiritual unknown that led me to a very unsettling experience. I located a therapist online who had claimed to overcome ME herself. She specialised in it and dealt with people's past trauma, but also worked with energies like Reiki. I had to get the train to where she lived. She met me in the car and drove me in silence back to hers. There was a bit of an unusual energy about her. I've always been really good at reading people. I can't quite explain it, but sometimes when I meet someone it's like I have a sixth sense for whether or not they'll play a significant role in my life. This person's energy felt alien to me. When we arrived at her, she told me that she sometimes would consult with her horses about people's health conditions. It was at this moment I knew that she was probably insane. Nonetheless, I shared a lot about my life. We got into the trauma of living with sickness, what it was like to constantly mourn your own life. It was comforting at first, and it felt like a safe space, until it got a bit weird. One day she offered me a glass of water before a Reiki session, and during the session I fell into a deep sleep. When I came around, multiple hours had passed, which was peculiar for me. I usually have issues with sleeping and couldn't drift off, particularly not in unfamiliar environments. She assured me it was total normal and to get plenty of water, and I thought nothing of it. Lines started getting somewhat blurry when she'd invite me for meals with her and her husband. I took it as friendliness, but I noticed that she started messaging me outside of clinic hours. One time I agreed to create music for her in exchange for some extra sessions. Not long after, I started getting strange messages in my Facebook inbox. She started telling me how she knew that all my previous songs had been about her, which they hadn't. When I dismissed this, she would sometimes message me saying that she was outside of my house, telling me that our souls were bonded and that bad things would happen to me if we weren't together. To put it lightly, I was already in a pretty weird emotional place because of years of sickness. So having someone in the position of trust abuse their position like this shook me, and it shook my trust in therapy even more. It shook my trust in people in general. I told her to never contact me again, and I blocked her, but she would still occasionally get through on other numbers. One time she'd phoned my mum's house relentlessly. My mum, knowing the details, told her to stop harassing me and threatened to get the police involved after things which went silent. This was also the year that I met my second ever girlfriend, who I'd later be engaged to for a short amount of time. My little sister had already set the relationship up in her mind. She met this girl in Bristol who she got on with super well, and somehow she wingmanned me and planted a seed in her brain that she'd be perfect for her older brother, me. My sister's friend had moved to Brighton, but I was blissfully unaware of this matchmaking. At this point, I was living in a house share in Rose Hill Terrace in Brighton with some lunatics I'd met at Ben's house, and Momoko had moved down from Cornwall. The house was only meant for 2 people, but Momoko and I had pretended we were married and pretended that we were going to have a baby to be able to get it. As soon as the deed was signed, we moved in with about 5 other friends, one living in the living room, one in the attic, one in the study, one in the conservatory. It's safe to say rent was pretty fucking cheap. One night my friend Luke was throwing a party and she rocked up with a few of her friends. My sister had pretty good taste in girls and I had a crush on her instantly. At some point in the night we both ended up lying on my bedroom floor on a bunch of sofa cushions while about 6 other people were sleeping in various places in my room. One somehow in the upper compartment of my wardrobe. True story. She asked me to tell her a bedtime story, and I made up the most unhinged story I could think of. By some sort of miracle, she found my madness endearing, and we ended up kissing a lot and staring into each other's eyes till we fell asleep. It's strange navigating a relationship when you're sick. I couldn't go out to eat at restaurants because I was allergic to everything. I didn't have the energy to do most normal things that couples do. Some days I'd be so full of brain fog that my personality disappeared, and it was hard to explain that to someone without them thinking that maybe you were just being a bit off with them. I think losing Joe, losing Callum, losing the record deal, losing my last girlfriend, it had all made me wary of getting attached to good things. Quite a lot of my illness made me feel ugly, and it's hard to accept love when you feel ugly. Nonetheless, she did love me, and with time our relationship grew. It was around this time I was contacted by a woman called Jennifer Breer, an incredibly inspiring woman whose journey seemed to parallel mine. She was an incredibly ambitious PhD student at Harvard who one day was struck down by a mystery illness that confined her to a wheelchair. She spent most of her life tirelessly searching for a way out. She was doing a Kickstarter to raise money to make a film called Canary in a Coal Mine. It would later go on to be renamed Unrest, and it would go on to win multiple awards, and it's still watchable on Netflix to this day. It's an incredibly important and very moving documentary about the horrors of living with ME. I recommend everyone checks that out.
For sure.
At the time, I started health blogging. I created a series of video diaries that I named Me versus ME. It would be a video document of my various trials with different alternative treatment approaches, and generally a look into the life of someone with a chronic illness. I didn't know it back then, but those videos would save my life. I guess I was occupying a place that was needed, as quite quickly many people in the chronic health communities gravitated towards my videos. Every day, I'd be sent messages telling the stories of the people who had fallen in between the cracks in the floorboards. There was heartbreaking stories. Stories of frustration and confusion. People mourning the people that used to be. Some who were new to this world. Some who had been there for decades. I tried to help them in whatever way I could. I tried to comfort people. In my own little way, I became somewhat of a spokesperson for the voiceless. I felt their pain like it was my own. This new pursuit gave me a sense of purpose that I desperately needed. Without purpose, I felt useless. I made a lot of friends, and I'd write to them on a daily basis. Some of those friends died. Some of those friends that decided to take their lives, and they were wicked people. I talked to them a lot. It was this that ultimately made me decide to stop, but that wouldn't be until years later. Immersing myself in the horrors of this illness and trying to carry some of the weight for the others while I still wasn't strong enough to carry my own eventually took its toll. Jen Breer had found my videos and she asked me to make a song for her documentary. I was honoured. I wrote a song called Patience. I'll leave you with a video taken at a time to finish off this chapter.
And I've learnt some lessons that will be so valuable for like, so it's a blessing and a curse being this ill, because it's completely changed me. Like it's turned me from a little cocky teenager into somebody who's quite this, I guess, prepared for things now. Like I feel like once I've gone through this, I'll throw anything at me and it'll be okay. But at the same time, as much as I see it as a blessing, I hate it. I do hate it. I think it was Thomas Edison that was like, I haven't failed, I've just found a thousand things that don't work, which is kind of nice to look at it that way, like I'm just eliminating things. But it really challenges my mind, and yeah, it's just gotten to the point where I'm spending, I'd say like 95% of my life in a bedroom, which kind of sucks, because my mind is in such a different place in my body. My mind
Boy who can't eat. Damn, man. That's crazy. So allergic to food. Like everything. That song is just... that whole chapter and everything. It just brought the idea of a caterpillar turning into a butterfly, the cocoon stage. I feel like he's in his cocoon stage right now. There's something so... that pattern in nature. Like, something has to be broken before it can be better than what it was. And the destruction that happens inside of a cocoon, the pain, I would assume, that caterpillar has to go through to become a butterfly. And I would think maybe not all survive it. And take that as a metaphor for any situation. All might not survive it. But the ones that do, the ones that tough it out and get through it and find that peace and that ability to do that in that moment, become so much greater than what they were. I mean, it just goes with anything. It's a natural law. Stick it out. Like, there's a purpose for everything. Pain has a purpose. There's two sides to everything. With every action, there's an equal opposite reaction. With every force, there's an equal and opposite force. With everything, there is something that has to counter it. All matter, there's antimatter. With hot, there's cold. With that, there's always some balance. Everything is like a scale, a sliding scale. Being able to visualize that scale and not just points on it and wherever you are. Even when you're at like a joy, you need to be aware that that's temporary, just as much as you need to be aware that pain is temporary. Because when the pain comes, you don't want to be caught off guard. You want to be able to appreciate that joy that you experienced and be prepared to get through the winter until the next summer comes. You want to be aware and appreciate life, its ups and downs, for the beauty that it all is, as a complete symphony of experience. Anyways, yeah, man. Yeah, lots of thoughts, I can't wait for him. I can't wait for I heard chapter 6, I think, is supposed to be good. Hopefully, I don't know. 7, hopefully 8 is great, because I think this is an 8-part series. Yeah, peace out.